Yes, hello everyone. I'm your teacher, Adeka Washington, your teacher of geography. Uh, Welcome again to my YouTube channel. And today I want us to look at something. I will be teaching you geography from three, that's external and forming processes. Hope you are all okay and you will enjoy the class. First of all, when we talk of external and forming processes, these are all processes of the earth which takes place on the earth surface. Remember when we began in Form 2, we looked at internal land forming processes. And if you can allow me to share my screen first, let me share my screen first so that you all see what is going on. Yes, as you can see very well, those are my notes. Now, I've been talking about external landforming process, and I was reminding you that in Form 2, we looked at internal landforming processes, and here we say that these are all the forces that take place inside the Earth's surface and influences the features that are formed within or beneath the Earth's surface. Now, here I'm talking about external landforming process, and here are all the forces, we call them exogenic forces, which takes place onto the Earth's surface and influences the features that occur on the Earth's surface. When we talk of some of these features, as you can see, I have displayed there some of the forces which are influencing the formation of features on the Earth's surface. And I'm referring to them as exogenic features, exogenic force processes, sorry. They include weathering, and weathering in summary, we can say is just the fracturing or the fracturing of rocks in situ or without movement. They don't require any movement or any external force for the rocks to fracture. We call that is weathering. Mass wasting, on the other hand, is the movement of rock materials. That movement of rock material either faster or slow. We call them rapid or slow mass movement. Then we have erosion. This is basically the process in which soil and other light particles on the Earth's surface are washed away either by water or we can say by wind. Now, upon all these processes taking place, talk of weathering, mass wasting, and erosion, there must be transportation where this material are being transported from one point to another. Hope you are getting me very well. Then we also have deposition, whereby these materials, upon transportation, where are they going? Now, where the material will be deposited or will be left after transportation processes is what we are calling deposition. So, where this material are coming from or have been eroded, weathered, there is some features that will be formed there. We call them maybe erosional features. Then where they are going to be deposited, we also have some features that will be formed there. And these features, we are referring to them as depositional features. So note that external landforming processes are processes that occur on the Earth's surface. We can also call them exogenic processes, and they result in the formation of different features on the Earth's surface. Then also recall the processes which result in the formation of those features, and I'm talking of weathering, mass wasting, and erosion. Those are the processes. Movement of materials will involve the transportation, that's transportational force, and we also have a deposition. Now, in our today's class, I only want us to focus on one thing. My main focus will only measure on weathering this particular class, so that in the next class, we'll be looking at something different. Now, when we talk of weathering, as I explained earlier, I said that weathering is the mechanical or chemical breakdown of rocks in situ. When I say in situ, I mean without movement, or the rocks are not altered by an external force. So we refer to it as a situ, without movement. This is as a result of what? What causes these rocks to fracture, or what causes this rock to decay? That one brings us now to the agents of weathering. Agents are the forces that are causing these rocks to decay. What is it that is causing this rock to fracture without movement? Number one, we're talking about weather elements. Weather elements includes rainfall, temperature, or floods. Now, when we talk of rainfall, it takes a part in chemical reaction. We all know that when rain falls, it absorbs carbon dioxide in atmosphere. This results in the formation of carbonic acid, and to make it clear, it's a weak carbonic acid. Now, this weak carbonic acid will react with elements in the rocks and cause them to fracture. At the same time, this rain, as because water is in solution form, it will react with some elements which are soluble in the rocks. So as it reacts with soluble elements, it causes the rocks to decay. We have temperature, and in temperature will play part in mechanical weathering, whereby when rocks are exposed to high temperature, let me say during the day, they will expand. Now, as they expand, they will experience a certain form of stress. During the night, when the temperatures are very low, the rocks will be forced to contract. Now, as this process continues, that expansion and contraction persists for a particular period of time, for a longer period of time. The rock gets stressed up, and at the end of the day, it fractures. Apart from that one, we have got plants. Now, in plants, we talk of expansion of roots. When plants grows, you can see a very tall plant. As it grows, the roots goes deeper and deeper in the soil. As this process continues, it means that as they penetrate, as the roots penetrate, they influence some pressure on the rocks. This pressure causes the rocks to fracture. As they fracture, we call them it weathering. Then it also takes part in chemical reaction, whereby as the plants remains, we call them flora, decomposes. They produces a weak acid, which can also react with the rock elements and cause some stress to them, which will result to them fracturing. Animals, here we can talk of the movement of larger animals like an elephant. When an elephant steps on rocks, they causes them to break. Then we talk of burrowing animals. Those are very small animals. Talk of the rats and the rodents, which are staying in the rocks. So during the activities, as they burrow during the day, they causes the fracturing of the rocks. Then lastly, people, and in people, we are talking over what are these people doing? And this brings us to human activities. Our day-to-day activities, for instance, quarrying, which has been actually common in our today's world. You will see a lot of very many people practicing quarrying in different places that are looking for minerals. For instance, in Kakamega, you might find very many people looking for what we call gold. I hear that there is gold in Koloman, in Kakamega, at a place called Ikolomani. So you'll see people, we find people, and go there during the day, we find very many people inside the trenches trying to look for that gold. When you go to Thika, you get there a company of stones, which are used, which cuts these construction stones, which are used for buildings. As the story buildings nowadays have become something common. So you'll see a lot of very many people doing that practice. Now, that quarrying process will result in interference of rocks, will result in the fracturing of rocks. I think that's clear. So when we talk of agents of weathering, as I have stated, I have said, we have got weather elements, and the other weather elements have talked of rainfall and temperature. Then we've looked at plants, how does it cause weathering? We've looked at animals, how does they cause weathering? Then we've looked at people, How does people cause weathering? Something maybe to add on when we look at something else, factors influencing weathering, factors weather influencing weathering. Now, we have looked at the agent that causes weathering. Now, we want us to look at the factors that will cause weathering, will influence. Now, what is it that is there that will cause weathering or the breaking of rocks to be at a faster rate? Now, and here, the first one we are looking at climate, and the climate talk of rainfall and temperature as usual. Increase in temperature causes the rocks to expand. Decrease in temperature causes the rocks to contract. Continuous expansion and contraction of rocks will lead to fracturing of the rocks, which will actually lead to mass wasting, and later on the rocks will be washed away. That's how we are talking about transportation. How about topography? Topography, this is the slanting. How slant is that area? The angle of elevation of that particular place. Is it steep? Is it gentle? Or is it gentle sloping? So here, on steep slope, the rate of weathering will be very high because the rolling down of rocks from upper places to lower places will be high. So as they roll down, they'll be hitting against each other and reducing itself. On a gentle slope or on a level slope, the rate of weathering will be slower. Nature of the rocks. Number 3. Here we talk about hard and soft rocks. And we can also talk about the dark rocks. So I had a problem with my internet connection, and maybe you can understand, the problem we normally have with internet connection. My Wi-Fi, I just stopped all of a sudden, but no problem. We can continue with the class. Let me continue sharing the screen so that we continue from where we were. Yes, we were there. So I was talking of the nature of rocks, and here I was talking about the hard and soft rocks. Hard rocks will require more time for exposure for them to break compared to soft rocks, which requires actually a very small, a little time for them to be decomposed. Then finally, you have biological organisms. These are just living organisms. What are these living organisms doing that will influence the breaking of the rocks? Thank you very much for today's class. I think today I can stop there. That one is enough. I don't want to repeat you guys so that at least you can grasp what I have actually told. So in our next class, we'll just look at the significance of weathering. That's the positive and the negative significance of weathering. How is this process of weathering important to in our day-to-day as life? So thank you very much for paying attention today. Thank you very much for listening to me. Let's meet in the next class when I will be doing another presentation so that I can actually prepare you well when you are preparing for your exams. You know exactly what to write, because at times the exams are very challenging and they require students to have learned and revised very wide. So go through what you have looked today, try to grasp what I have actually taught, so that when we meet in the next class, it will just be a recap. We'll look at the significance of the process that we have actually looked at. Then we'll be moving on well, so that maybe we can introduce something else. Thank you very much for listening, and let's meet in another class. Thank you very much, students.